The first thing I noticed was his shoes, polished to a mirror shine, tapping against the marble floor of the restaurant lobby. They didn't belong to my world, not when my own sneakers had soles so thin I could feel every crack of the sidewalk. I shouldn't have been there, not in that place with chandeliers gleaming overhead and waiters gliding past in crisp black vests. My sister was supposed to come, not me. But she had tossed her hair, rolled her eyes, and said, "He's just some older businessman, probably boring. Do me a favor, you're better at talking to people." And before I could argue, she was gone, leaving me to step into a lie that pressed heavy against my chest. I pulled at the sleeve of my thrift store cardigan, hoping it looked intentional, like some kind of vintage style, not just frayed and stretched. The host smiled politely, though her eyes flickered down to my scuffed shoes. "Table for Mr. Calloway?" she asked, voice smooth. I nodded, throat dry. My stomach growled faintly, betraying that I hadn't eaten more than a slice of bread since yesterday. When I reached the table, he looked up from his phone. His eyes, steel gray, sharp as cut glass, narrowed slightly, then softened, like he'd noticed something out of place. He wore a charcoal suit tailored so perfectly it seemed sculpted to him, a deep navy tie, and a watch that probably cost more than a year of rent. "You're late," he said calmly but not unkindly. "I'm sorry," I stammered, sliding into the seat. My knees bumped the table, the scent of leather and cologne wrapped around me, foreign and suffocating. I clutched my purse tighter. Inside, only a cracked phone, bus transfer ticket, and a handful of coins rattled. He studied me, not the way men usually did, lingering, expectant, but like he was trying to read a document. "You don't look like your pictures," he said finally, his voice low. Heat rose in my face. My sister had shown me the profile she made for herself, glossy selfies, red lipstick, sleek hair. Me, my hair was pulled into a messy bun, strands escaping. My lips were chapped from the cold air of the bus stop. The light was different. I mumbled, unable to meet his gaze. A silence stretched between us. Waiters floated by, carrying plates heavy with steak and salmon, scents making my stomach clench in hunger. He leaned back, fingers tapping his glass. "Tell me your name again." I froze. My sister's name perched on my tongue, but then slipped away. Something about his eyes made lying impossible. "It's not who you think," I whispered. My voice trembled. "I'm not her. My sister was supposed to come, but she didn't." He tilted his head, lips pressing into a thin line. I braced for anger, for him to call the waiter, to humiliate me. Instead, he simply said, "Interesting." Then, softer, "Why did you come?" "Because I had nowhere else to go. Because home was a one-room apartment with a flickering bulb, a fridge holding only a bottle of ketchup, and a shriveled onion. Because the rent notice, curled and yellowed on the door, threatened to send me into the street, but I couldn't say any of that. I just looked at my hands, nails bitten short, and muttered, "I didn't want to leave you waiting." His gaze sharpened again, and for a moment I thought he saw everything. The duct-taped strap of my backpack, the coins I counted at self-checkout, the way my body sagged from exhaustion after double shifts. Then his phone buzzed on the table, and I glimpsed the photo on the screen. A little boy, maybe 5, grinning with missing teeth. "You have a son?" I blurted before I could stop myself. The corner of his mouth lifted, the first flicker of warmth. "Yes, Matthew, he's everything." He looked down at the photo, fingers brushing the glass with a tenderness that made my throat tighten. The hook struck sharp inside me. What kind of man was this? Not just a CEO, not just polished wealth, but a father. And what was I doing sitting across from him, pretending for even a moment that I belonged in this place? He ordered for both of us before I could protest. Plates arrived, perfectly seared salmon, roasted vegetables glistening with butter. I stared, the scent making my mouth water. "Eat," he said simply, not unkindly. I hesitated, then lifted a fork, my hand trembling. The first bite nearly made me cry. I hadn't tasted real food in weeks. "You're hungry," he observed quietly, almost to himself. I froze, cheeks burning. "How long has it been since you had a proper meal?" I swallowed hard, but the lump in my throat choked me. My eyes stung. I shook my head, refusing to admit it. Dignity was all I had left. He leaned forward slightly, voice lowering. "You're not leaving, not yet." The words tightened around me like invisible chains. My heart pounded. Did he mean to trap me, to toy with me? Or was there something else behind his gaze? Something I couldn't yet name. The restaurant noise faded, the polished world around us blurring, until it was only him and me, locked in a moment too heavy to break. His words echoed in my head. "You're not leaving, not yet." For a heartbeat I wanted to bolt, to run back into the cold night air where at least the rules were simple. Hunger, struggle, survival. But something in his eyes stopped me. They weren't cruel, not sharp as I first thought. They carried the kind of weariness I knew too well, the kind that comes from fighting battles no one else sees. I set my fork down, my hands trembling slightly. "Why?" I whispered. "Why would you even care if I stayed or left?" He leaned back, folding his arms across his chest. His voice was steady but softer than before. "Because most people would have lied. You didn't. And because I can tell you're carrying something heavy. I know what that feels like." He glanced again at the photo of his son. "I wasn't always this man in a suit. Life." He exhaled, shaking his head. "Life can strip you down, I've been there." My throat tightened. I wanted to ask him what he meant, but instead I pushed the food around my plate. The truth was spilling out of me anyway, slow and raw. "The fridge is empty," I murmured before I could stop myself. "Rent's past due. I work every shift I can get, but it's never enough. My shoes are falling apart." My voice cracked as I looked down at them, torn fabric stretched thin. But I still try to look like I'm fine, because if I fall apart, no one's going to put me back together. He didn't interrupt. His gray eyes held steady on mine, not pitying, not judgmental, just listening. When I finally dared to look up, I saw something I hadn't expected. Respect. "You remind me of someone," he said slowly. "My wife, before she passed." His lips trembled just slightly on the word, but he didn't flinch. "She was strong like you, stronger than me most days. She kept fighting when everything told her to give up." He cleared his throat, straightening his tie. "You should know, this wasn't just a date. I wasn't looking for fun. I was looking for someone who might understand my life, someone who could be there, not just for me, but for Matthew." The world tilted. My sister had sent me into something I couldn't possibly fit into, something too big, too unreal. A single dad CEO searching for a partner, and me, barely holding myself together with duct tape and hope. "I can't be that," I said, voice shaking. "I'm barely surviving." "You're surviving," he corrected gently. "That takes more strength than you realize." My eyes stung, tears threatening to slip free. No one had ever said that to me before. No one had ever looked at my broken edges and called them strength. The waiter dropped off the bill, and I instinctively reached for my purse, though I had only coins rattling inside. He placed his hand on mine, stopping me. His touch was firm, warm. "No," he said softly. "I invited you, and frankly, I don't want this to be the last time I see you." I tried to pull my hand back, but something inside me ached to leave it there. The thought of being wanted, of being seen, of not being invisible, it unraveled me. "I can't promise I'm what you're looking for," I whispered. He smiled, a tired but genuine smile. "I'm not asking for promises, just honesty, and maybe coffee tomorrow, somewhere small. No chandeliers, I promise." The next morning, we met at a tiny corner cafe, sunlight streaking across the windows. I wore the same cardigan, patched with care the night before. He arrived with Matthew, wide-eyed, hair sticking up like he'd wrestled with sleep and lost. The boy climbed into the chair across from me, clutching a toy car with chipped paint. He grinned, showing that same gap-toothed smile from the photo. "Hi," he said, shy but curious. "Dad says you like pancakes. Do you?" I laughed, the sound surprising me. "I love pancakes." The boy's eyes lit up. "Good, then we can share." And just like that, the tension eased. Over stacks of pancakes and cheap coffee, I listened to Matthew's stories about superheroes and playground adventures, his small hands sticky with syrup. And I watched his father, the CEO with polished shoes, relax in a way that made him look younger, more human, not untouchable, not perfect, just a man trying to raise his son with love. When the plates were cleared, he looked at me carefully. "You don't have to decide anything now," he said, "but I want you to know, you're not alone, not anymore." The words sank deep, warming places inside me I thought had gone cold forever. I still had an eviction notice curling on my door. My fridge was still nearly empty. My shoes were still worn through. But for the first time in years, I felt like maybe those things weren't the whole story. Maybe there was another chapter waiting. I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from my face, and held his gaze. "All right, coffee tomorrow too, but you're buying pancakes again?" He laughed, shaking his head. "Deal." And in that moment, I understood something I'd never believed before. One act of generosity, one moment of kindness, can reroute a life. Sometimes all it takes is someone willing to see past the worn shoes and the empty fridge, and call your survival strength instead of failure. That was the beginning of mine.